Bang! Neeves Knives, I'm Jared, and today we are checking out the SHARPAL's adjustable angle guided knife sharpening rod. This system has everything built into it for just about anything you're gonna need as far as sharpening or honing with a rod. You can pretty much do everything from big knives, small knives, recurves, fish hooks and serrations, cigar cutters, and since it's using diamonds, you can even do the high carbide, high wear resistant steels. It also comes with two straps. You have a flesh side one and then a suede side one. I put my own diamond emulsion on this one. I get my stuff from Shopee Stuff. I have them on the Neve Knife Co. site. If you want to pick some up, they'll be linked down in the description. In my opinion, it's the best strapping compound on the market, period. It's a diamond emulsion, great stuff. But this is an 11-in-1 system. So you have an angle guide right here that you can just spin and rotate this, and you'll have your angle guides raising or lowering depending on your angle. Then right now I have two ceramic rods on there, and there's two so that I can do both sides of the knife without switching anything. But then if I need to do some real sharpening, it also comes with 4 diamond rods, 2 of each grit. So we have 2 325s, so you can do both sides simultaneously, and 2 1000 grits. Then it also comes with a rat tail, which we'll talk about here in 1 second. So this makes it where you can just swap these out very quickly, very rapidly, and get to the next grit, and then finally with the ceramic, or you can just do some honing. You also can unscrew this and then screw in the rat tail file back here. Now you can use this for sharpening serrations, or it has a groove in it for sharpening fishing hooks. Then if we turn it around, you have a spot here to hold sharp arrowheads so that you can put the rods on. Then it has a cap on the back where you can use it for storage. So if you want to store some extra stuff in there, you can. Now you can use this for multiple different purposes. You can fully sharpen with it, you can hone with it, micro bevel, or just strop. So you basically can go from anywhere from full sharpening to maintenance. Now, being the system that it is, it's going to be better for a light duty sharpening and light duty, maintenance and stuff, but let's talk about how you'd use it. So the conventional way to use it is upright, just like this. You would start as far as sharpening. If you're going to do a full sharpening, you would start with the lowest grit, which would be 325 grit diamond rods on both sides. Then you can put it to whatever angle you prefer. Now we'll talk about this later on in the video. The angles might not be exactly perfect as far as the exact angle it's saying it is, but at the very least, it's the exact same on both sides so that you can repeat it over and over, which is the most important part when sharpening. So you'd hold it upright, place the knife on the angle, starting with the heel, you pull down and pull towards yourself, holding that angle all the way to the tip. So start from heel and pull to the tip. Heel to tip, holding that same angle. Once you've developed the burr, you can go to the other side and repeat. Do the same exact thing. Now, I'll be honest, I typically hold it like this, where I do it just like I do on the stone sharpening. I just feel more comfortable this way, and then I turn it back towards me and pull towards me when doing the opposite side. That's just the way I do it. You can hold it however it makes, however you're comfortable, but it is designed to do it this way so you can do both sides at once, especially like when you're doing a burr removal and things like that, which we'll talk about in a second. Then, once you've gotten a burr on both sides, you will take out the 325 grit diamond rods and replace it with the 1000 grit. And then repeat the same exact thing, starting with the edge you originally started with, which the burr should be on that side. Once you develop another burr, you then flip again to the opposite side and do the exact same thing. And then you take out the 1000 grit diamond rods and you replace them with the ceramic. And then again, do the exact same thing. But this time, for me personally, I would just be doing the burr removal here. You can use this as a finishing stone if you really want to refine the edge. You just do the exact same thing you did with the diamonds until it's to your preferable finish. Me, I'm going to do gentle passes, one side at a time, until my burr is completely removed. A burr is a little metal wire that develops from you removing steel from each side. It'll develop on the opposite side. So whatever side you're sharpening, a burr or a metal wire will develop on the opposite side, and you can feel it. It feels rough. Now we want to remove that, but you want to do it gently. You do not want to be aggressive with this. Some burrs are more difficult than others to remove. Some of them are very, very easy, but you always want to use lighter pressure when removing a burr. So I'm using gentle pressure, like literally probably just like the weight of the blade. When I was sharpening, I was using probably about 2 to 4 pounds for sharpening. And then with burr removal, I'm using as little pressure as possible. And then towards the end, I'll go lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And then when I realize my burr is 90% gone, I will then go to the strop. Now the strop does not have an angle guide attached, so you do have to freehand this part, but just try to hold the angle about the same way you were holding on the rods. And you can, I guess, go like that and then just hold that to get an idea. You could do that, which would work. And then you should have a very sharp edge after all that. If you do want to do your serrations, you're going to have to take the rat tail file to the serration. And this does have different thicknesses, so you can do thicker ones or small ones. Now you can also use the big ones by just drawing across from one side of it to the other. It might even be easy for some of you guys to just lock your knife in a vise or something like that. Now what I like to do is after I'm done doing each serration individually, and sometimes using a Dremel is a little bit easier for these, but it also removes material a lot faster. So if you're going to do any damages, it'll also damage much faster. But once you have developed a burr on your serrations on the opposite side, now what you want to do is you want to remove that burr. So you could take one of these ceramic rods and just take and go from the heel of the edge to the tip, just very gently, kind of like we were talking about before with the last one. You want to remove the burr very gently because you're not going to sharpen the opposite side. And then that should make your serrations nice and sharp. And if you maintenance them before they are completely tore up, they will be much easier to keep sharp for much, much longer. And what you're looking for is each individual serration to be able to cut. If you do strop your serrations, do it on the opposite side of the serrations where you would have developed the burr, and just try to hold it almost flat where it's not up at a pitch, because you're doing a much, much lower angle when doing this side, because you're doing the side of the grind, not necessarily the angle of an edge bevel. And if you do need to get the serrated side, you can use the corner and wedge it in and just kind of glide it right through. Now, if this is a knife I have already sharpened, right? It's already a knife that I've already sharpened, but I just want to do a little maintenance, right? I don't need to do a full-blown sharpening. What I'll do is I'll go to the ceramic rod and I will put it at the angle I want, and I will do gentle passes per side at that preferred angle, very lightly, very gentle. Then I'll do just a few passes per side, and then I'll take it to the strop. That should tune your edge up. Now, if you hold it at the exact same angle that's on the knife, it will hone the entire edge. If you hold it at a little bit of a higher angle, it'll micro bevel the edge, which is also a great way to maintain your edge in between sharpenings. So when you do a full-blown sharpening, you're obviously going to match the angle you want. But when you're doing a micro bevel, you're just cutting in a nice little bevel right at the apex, which does make your knife very sharp for a limited amount of time until you can do a full-blown sharpening. Now, if honing is not working as far as on just a ceramic, you can switch to the 1000 grit diamond rod. Which it's not a bad idea to just have 1000 grit and a ceramic on this at all times if you're going to be using it for maintenance. But then what you can do is you can use the 1000 grit to do a few light passes on there. Because remember, we're just honing the edge. We're not removing a lot of steel. We just want to get a new apex, basically, but very gentle. We're not like, there's no damages we're removing or anything like that. So I will do a bunch of gentle passes per side, not too much pressure, and then go back to the ceramic. Now we'll gently hit both sides again, then go to the strop. And you can tune up an edge in about 60 seconds with something like this, assuming there is no damage. Bang. So what are some negatives with this system? So one negative is that, and maybe you can find them on Amazon. I'm pretty sure you can find these exact same rods on Amazon because I've bought something similar to this in the past and I have a whole pack of them still. I guess I should check and see if they fit. They might be a little too long, but I'm sure they come in other sizes. However, it would be nice if SHARPAL just had them on their site, right? So that when you do wear them out, because the diamond rods will wear out. It's guaranteed. That's the one thing that will absolutely happen. Even if they last a long time, eventually they will wear out. And since they are rods and they are so small, they're generally not going to last a very long time because it's just a small surface. So I would appreciate if they just had some extra ones on the site that you could replace so you don't have to just go and buy a whole new system. However, this is a very affordable system considering everything you're getting here. So, you know, it's not that big of a deal if you did have to buy it, but it would be nice just to get the replaceable parts. This thing is very convenient, very easy to store and basically take anywhere with you. I think, man, this thing's actually really cool and it has very, very little drawbacks. The one other negative I would say, and this is a negative towards all angle guides like this, they're generally not accurate. So basically you got to think about it like the angle is referring to the center line of the spine of the knife. right? But because different knives have different thicknesses of spines and a different taper down to the edge, the angles are not going to be the same. If I grab 3 knives and I put it at 17 degrees, one might hit 17 degrees, but one might be 25, one might be 30. So, you know, you do have to kind of take that into account. So don't set it to an angle and think that you're actually sharpening at that angle. However, what it does do, it does give you a base point where you have a reoccurring spot to start at. So you can continue to hold the exact same angle and repeat it over and over, which is the most important thing when knife sharpening. Now, I would say that in most cases, you're probably going to want to go to the lower end with this, you know, which is 15 degrees is the lowest. That is where I would say is probably the best for a lot of knives, but it does depend on a lot of factors. Now you can also, if you really need to, you can hold lower by setting the spine in the center of it instead of taking the edge and like letting it drop and go down and then hit the stone. Instead of doing that, start the spine of the knife halfway down the ramp. That will give you a much lower angle if you need it. One other small negative is in order to hit the very beginning part of the edge, you might not be able to because the scale could hit this because of the shape. So what you might have to do is start the edge where you can hit it at an angle and then use the guide from the spine part. So you'll basically start it at an angle just like this, which is not a big deal, but just know you're not going to be able to start everything in this direction. So my final conclusions. I've used it on quite a bit already. I have been testing the hell out of it and I like it. I like it a lot. I'm actually developing something kind of similar to some extent. It's not exactly like this by any means, but it has a similar idea with the angle guides. So I think that's really cool. Obviously, you know, if I'm trying to design something similar, but this thing does have so many little factors going for it that I love with the parts, you know, that come with the system. They're already part of the system that you can switch and swap out, and it makes it just super convenient. And I've been able to fully sharpen knives that don't have an edge yet, meaning from the factory with the factory edge. Because this is one thing you got to take into account when you're every time you're watching sharpening, and us sharpeners should tell you this more often. If we're sharpening a knife that we've already sharpened, it's going to go much faster, because we've already set our angle to the preference we want. So when we're sharpening it again after getting that angle, we're now starting at the place we want it to. When we're sharpening the first time, we're setting the angle to the angle we want, which takes, in most cases, much longer. When you're taking a knife that's 20 degrees per side, 20 degrees per side edge bevel, and you're lowering it down to 15 degrees per side, and it's 20 thousandths thick behind the edge, that's going to take you a long time. Well, not a long time. It's going to take you a much longer time than it will if it was already 15 degrees and you're sharpening at 15 degrees. So just take that into consideration. Don't base everything on your time on anybody else's, but I will say I have sharpened from a fresh, edge that's a factory edge that needed a sharpening, all the way to honing and stropping and maintaining an edge, and it works great. So this is definitely something I recommend. I will link it down in the description if you do want to pick one up. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.